Good morning. We're reading Mystery of History. We're on page 45. We are still on Catherine the Great. This is quite a long section on her. And we had just finished talking about how Pugachev was a guy. That was his last name. His first name was Emelian. But he pretended to be Peter, and a lot of people believed him. So, some of the poor Russians, maybe that's too loud. The poor Russians were fighting the rich because they believed they were fighting with who?
Peter.
They thought they were under Peter's leadership. So that's where we pick up. Sorry, we're on page 46. I was just reviewing on page 45. Okay, so Pugachev paid a great price for his rebellion. There were 20,000 plus peasants with him. But for a hefty bounty. What is a bounty?
Isn't it like a sum of money?
Yes, it's some money. For a hefty amount of money, his own men turned on him and turned him into the authorities. So they weren't really that loyal to him. I want y'all to go ahead and sit down, please. Grab something and sit down. In 1775, Pugachev was captured. So I think it's interesting to notice how close is this to the American Revolution?
Very close.
I mean, not the American Revolution. The American Declaration of Independence. When was that?
In
1776. Continental Congress.
Declaration of Independence.
Yes, there we go.
In Philadelphia.
Okay, enough of the song. So in 1775, this is happening at the same time. Pugachev was captured and he was put to death. But it says, in a merciful way, Catherine asked. Oh, okay. Well, there was a little bit of gross stuff here I'm not going to go over. Okay, yeah. So there was some kind of gross stuff of how he died. Pugachev's rebellion failed, and the pathetic state of the peasants continued to be ignored by Catherine. So she continued to ignore the hardships they were going through. In fact, the story is told that once in 1787, so this is quite a few years later, Catherine was riding through the countryside on an elaborate tour. Well, her subjects tucked away the tattered-looking poor people and replaced them with strong, well-groomed fill-ins to make the towns and villages appear to be in much better shape than they were. It's not clear if Catherine fell for the trick, but she went along with it and waved and smiled to these supposed peasants as she traveled past them. A second inconsistency of Catherine's that demonstrates her inglorious reign was her treatment of the church. On one hand, she extended tolerance, but early in her reign she assumed leadership of the Russian Orthodox Church, and she gave herself power to buy the church lands and to hire and fire the clergy. That's a lot of power in a church. In European history, state-run churches were a heated issue. That means there was a lot of controversy and conflict over them. Catherine dared to push her power as an absolute monarch. A third inconsistency was Catherine's personal life. So here we're talking about paragraphs. What is this paragraph about?
It's about Catherine's life.
Her personal life being part of her inglorious reign. She was notorious for mixing her love life with political life. She would give the people that she was loving as husbands, they call them boyfriends, but people that she's loving as husbands, positions of power in the government. Though she chose her men carefully, her methods of appointment were unscrupulous and biased by her heart.
What is biased? I've heard it for a while, but I don't know what it means.
Biased means the opposite of objective, meaning I'm not seeing clearly because I'm so I'm loving this man like a husband, and I've fallen into lust, and so that's what I'm being guided by instead of wisdom. I'm not being guided by wisdom. Okay, let's see here. Where was I? The men closest to her would typically serve her for a few years, and then they were moved on with gifts of land and serfs. As many as 10,000 serfs would accompany a large estate. As for the men in Catherine's life, it was difficult to tell who cared for Catherine and who simply just used her. That means that some of these men were just loving her just so they could get a high position and all the land and the serfs to go with it. The last inconsistency in the life of Catherine would be in her thinking. Caleb, what's this paragraph going to be about?
Her thinking.
Good. Her thinking as part of her inglorious reign. Why do I keep saying that?
Because you were inglorious.
Yes. I mean, why? I'm wondering why I keep saying it like that. Every time I say it, I say inglorious reign.
Like then.
On the one hand, she saw herself as a part of the Enlightenment. Remember, the Enlightenment was what?
When they started to think of the reason without God, and they called it being enlightened.
That is funny.
It's actually being dimmed.
It is.
Lights are off.
The dimming.
The dimmment.
The dimmment. As a huge fan of Voltaire's, she wished to be considered one of the more enlightened minds of Europe. Though she never met Voltaire, she had become a close friend to him through 15 years of letter writing. So this was before like emails and telephone calls. So she wrote him a bunch of letters, but she never met him in person. But she didn't care to know Rousseau, and they don't know why, or Miss Hobart doesn't know why. Catherine also wrote volumes of works in the ways of plays, operas, and policies. Policies. Through Voltaire's influence, she was strongly opposed to torture and oppressing religion. However, she fell short of being a truly enlightened despot. She says, let me explain. See, she's about to transition into explaining why she fell short of being a truly enlightened despot.
What's a despot?
I don't know, and I can't look it up. Because we'll have to look it up after, because
We could get the telephone.
No, that takes too long. We gotta finish. I'll have to look it up after we turn this off. Toward the end of Catherine's reign, the French Revolution was underway in France. I wonder when the end of her reign was. Does it say here? It's clearly in the wait, okay. So in the 1790s. So that's a long time, because she's already seen the American Revolution, Declaration of Independence, the new country is forming, and all this is happening, the Enlightenment, and now she's the dimming of the minds, the dimmment. Now it's the 1790s, in the end of her reign. Okay, so let's see. Now we have the French Revolution was underway. Catherine was terrified by it. Why? She was scared because the principles of the Enlightenment that fueled the French Revolution were the principles of freedom, democracy, and inalienable rights. What would Catherine do if those ideas fell into the hands of the Russian peasants and serfs? So she was afraid of what?
The serfs taking over.
That these very ideas that she was saying are so great, they would take and also have a Russian Revolution. Catherine didn't want to risk finding out, so she backed away from the Enlightenment ideas altogether. She forbade the selling of Voltaire's books and took down his statue from her chambers. She exiled a popular author named Radishchev to Siberia. Why do they always exile them to Siberia? It's like, to Siberia!
It's like
Siberia's probably popping with people. There's like so many people there.
there's probably New Exile City.
Because he was promoting revolutionary ideas. Meaning he was like, we should revolt. In fear, it was as if Catherine tried to stop free thinking. The Enlightenment had become a conflict of interest between power and ideals. So she was like, this is a great ideal, but I want to keep my power. So
Or backing away.
yeah, we're not going to be thinking this type of stuff anymore. In 1796, however, Catherine the Great's death came unexpectedly. She suffered from a stroke, or perhaps a heart attack. And she died. Because her death came suddenly, Catherine had not yet secured an heir to the throne. I feel like she should have done that a long time ago, but maybe she thought that would be a threat to her power, because she's been in power for over 20 years at least at this point. When did she
Do you
take...
have a jubilee?
Let me see. Stop. When did she take power here? 1762. So it's been over 30 years. In 30 years, she did not take an heir. She did not secure an heir to the throne.
Yes.
She hoped that her grandson Alexander would be the next king, but the position went instead to her son Paul. They had never been close, and Catherine lacked confidence in him. She had not been a good mother. But as a representation of her better qualities, before her death, Catherine commissioned the building of an interesting statue in St. Petersburg. It was the figure of Peter the Great on a large boulder with the Latin inscription Patro Primo Caterina Secunda, meaning to Peter the First from Catherine the Second, 1782. Besides identifying her royal title as Catherine II, she was implying that she was second only to Peter the Great, whom many considered to be the father of modern Russia. Was she second? Had she accomplished a great deal? Miss Hobart says, I'll let you be the judge of that. Okay, so that's the end of her section. We're gonna... Oh, look, we'll be looking at the American Revolution next.
Woo!
And we are stopping. We're on page 47. All right.